Free Japan Channel number 23. Today is February 16th, 2024. The time is 8 p.m. So, here in Yokohama, it's night time. Dear listeners, how are you doing? I'm Matsumoto speaking. The night view of Yokohama is beautiful tonight. And this is the first broadcasting in February. Today's topic is Carlson interviewed Putin. Did you watch the interview of Tucker Carlson to President Putin? As you know, President Putin is the leader of Russia, and he's been in the present position, so the presidential position, since 2000. So for more than 20 years, Putin is in the position of President of Russia. Russia invaded militarily Ukraine in February 2022. So 2 years ago, the Russian invasion broke out. It was clearly the invasion of Russia against Ukraine. So international communities criticized Russia for this invasion, and economic sanctions were implemented to Russia. So Russia couldn't and can't get the benefit of trade with the Western society. 2 years ago, many commentators here in Japan, including the experts of Russia, said that this economic sanction by the West will suffocate Russian economy. So Russia will be defeated easily. But this opinion was not the case. Russia is still now, so 2 years has passed, Russia is still now in the dominant position in Ukraine war. And Tucker Carlson is famous for being independent in the American journalism. And Carlson, interviewed the former American President Trump. And his interview with Trump was very prevailed and spread for being unique, because Carlson could draw the real value or real policy of former President Trump. Trump's reputation is still now very curiously distorted, even in the United States. And Carlson tried to correct this distortion to the real Trump. That was the aim of that interview of Carlson with former American President Trump. And this time, this Carlson tried to interview Putin. And Russian President Putin accepted this offer. So surprisingly, 2 hours interview was conducted in Moscow in this February, and many people in the world pay attention to this interview, including me, of course. And the content of this interview revealed that Putin was a very intelligent and prudent leader of Russia. In the Western media, including Japanese media, Putin was almost always portrayed as a cruel leader or sometimes mad leader, and he was impaired by the disease, psychologically or physically. Many media try to degrade the image of Vladimir Putin and try to support the military operation of Ukraine against Russia. But 2 years have passed, and the situation is that Russia is obviously predominant in that region. And Carlson tried to draw the real Putin as he did with Trump. And this time, Carlson succeeded in disclosing the real Putin. The real Putin tried to explain the present situation in terms of history. At the beginning of this interview, Putin explained the history of Russia because he said that Carlson was not so familiar with Russian history. So Putin, tried to elucidate the history of Ukraine and Russia, and the origin of these two countries were the same after all. So what he wanted to say was that these two countries are not separable in the military perspective and historical perspective and political perspective. But the West, the NATO people, tried to include Ukraine to NATO. So NATO is a Western organization, military organization, and Russia couldn't approve of it. And Putin also said that in the interview this time, said that he offered to NATO people that Russia is willing to participate in or belong to NATO, but NATO refused his offer. And Putin said that he had no choice but to be solitary in the Western society. So this is why Russia is now solitary. Russia tried to make an effort to be included in the NATO or in the Western society, Western country, but Western country turned it down. So Russia tried to establish another relationship with China, for example, or India. And another important point of the interview was that Putin tried to eliminate the Nazi faction of Ukraine in this war. In one word, Putin tried to conduct denazification. So this is a very symbolic word in the interview. And one of the purposes of Russian military operation, so he didn't employ the word invasion, but operation, was the denazification. So Putin said that in Ukraine there are so many Nazi people, and these people are respected in Ukraine. Historically speaking, in the Ukraine, there are so many people or so many leaders, Ukraine leaders, who participated in Nazi movement. And Putin even mentioned the Canadian Congress, where Ukraine President Zelensky addressed a speech, but that at that time the former Nazi member was also summoned in the Congress, and he was the Nazi member was applauded by the congressmen in Canada. So Putin said that in Ukraine there are so many Nazi elements even now, and he wanted to remove these factors from Ukraine. It was his duty, according to Putin. Through the interview, we could clearly see that Putin was anything but a madman or impaired leader, but he was very prudent, he was very intelligent, and his knowledge was based on history, philosophy. Putin even mentioned the name of the great author Dostoevsky in the 19th century, saying that the human existence is very complicated. It is by no means a simple stuff. So we should look at human societies, or we should look at history from various perspectives. And it was very impressive part of the interview. Tucker Carlson even asked the dualism of Putin, that is, Russian Orthodox and political leader. Russian Orthodox is a kind of Christianity, and this religion, Christianity, teaches that we should not destroy other people. We should not kill other creatures. But as a leader, political leader, Putin has to command the massive murder in Ukraine, for example. And Carlson asked Putin whether he would suffer from this dualism or this conflict or not, moral conflict, so to speak. And Putin answered laughing. Oh, it was a very easy problem. If Russia is invaded by other people or by the outside, then it is a must, it is a duty for the Russian politician to defend the family, to defend the community, to defend the country. I think that the interview of Carlson to Putin this time was very instructive, and it was revealing that the Western media line was totally off the point, and we should gather information so independently and from the various news sources, not only mass media, but also from the SNS, including YouTube. Thank you.